I literally went from experiencing pain every single day to no pain in one day after switching to this keyboard. I wanted to make a quick update video on how my new keyboard has been going, the Kinesis Advantage 360 Pro. So there's been some good things and some bad things. But before I get into that, I just wanted to say thank you because I just hit 1,000 subscribers a couple of days ago and 4,000 watch hours. So that's felt pretty validating, and it tells me that I'm making content that at least some of you are interested in. And my NeoVim videos seem to have the most interest, so I'll probably keep those coming. So moving on to the Kinesis Advantage 360 Pro, this keyboard right here. How has it been going? Well, first of all, the keycaps on this thing sucks. And so I actually pulled off the keycaps on my Moonlander and stuck them on here because I just like how these feel so much more. I think the black keycaps are ABS and the white ones that came with the Moonlander are PBT. I just like how the PBT ones feel so much more than the ABS. The ABS, I just feel like grease on my fingers, which apparently my fingers produce a lot of grease, just like get stuck on there and just like soak into the keys. And so I just ended up putting these on there, and the white keycaps. I actually think it has a cool aesthetic. Personally, I really like it. And yeah, enough said about that. And as far as my RSI has been improving, I did not expect this, but from basically day one of using this keyboard, I have not felt any issues. There was one day where I took out the Moonlander just to do some typing test stuff for another video that I made. And on that day, right after typing on the Moonlander, my RSI symptoms came back and my forearms were just really sore for the rest of the day. And after switching back to this keyboard, the issues just went away again. I don't understand how that works, like how the Moonlander is just so much different than this, that this keyboard would provide that much improvement, but it does. And I'm really surprised about that. So as many issues as I have with this keyboard so far, I have to say I'm gonna probably stick with it. Speaking of which, there's been a lot of comments in my other videos where I'm talking about these keyboards, asking if I've looked at other keyboards like the Glove 80 and a couple others. The Glove 80 was definitely mentioned the most. And to be quite frank, no, I haven't looked into those other keyboards. And the reason why is I didn't get into keyboards because I am a keyboard person. I originally got the Moonlander, which I put the Kinesis keys on here, which I actually kind of like the keys on the Moonlander from the Kinesis. But anyways, I originally got the Moonlander because I was experiencing pain while typing, and I did a bunch of research, and this one seemed like a really good option. And so that's what I went with. And I'm really, really glad that I did, because I learned so much about keyboards, and it just opened my eyes to the possibilities that a programmable keyboard can do for you as a software developer. And I mentioned this in my review video of the Moonlander, but I really, really like this keyboard. But unfortunately, it just wasn't enough to solve my RSI issues. And so when I was looking at other keyboards, my number one priority was finding a keyboard that would resolve the pain that I feel while typing. And just from looking at the keyboards that you guys have mentioned, the Glove 80 is probably the closest thing to what I would be looking for. But the fact of the matter is the Kinesis has been out for a really long time, and it just seemed like the keyboard that was the most likely to help with my RSI. And so that's the keyboard that I went for. Not because I thought it was the best keyboard or the coolest keyboard, or the keyboard with the most features or most well-built, but the one that was most likely to help with pain-free typing. And so far, that has turned out to be the case. And this is not the perfect keyboard. It has a lot of issues, but I will happily, gladly put up with those issues if it means that I can type and do my job without being in pain. And what are some of those issues? Well, I've already talked about the keycaps. I don't even know if it's an option to get different keycaps when you order this keyboard off of the Kinesis website, which I did not do. Getting this keyboard was actually kind of an impulse buy. I was just working one day and I just had had enough, and I was just so sick of being in pain that I went on Amazon because that had the fastest shipping, and that's just the one that I went with. I'm actually a little suspicious that this one was already used when I got it, because it had like grease, like very slightly, like you almost couldn't tell, but it looked like someone's sweaty, nasty palm had already been on this before. But other than that, I'm still just annoyed that the software that this thing comes with is just not great. And I just think that the marketing around this keyboard, calling it the 360 Professional, kind of rubs me the wrong way. Professional to me means like when you get professional support on some kind of like service or software or some kind of equipment, that means better tooling, better performance, more features, means more support. And so far, the only thing that this keyboard seems to have over the Kinesis Advantage 360 and the Kinesis Advantage 2 is it has spotty Bluetooth and more features that are a pain to use. Speaking of Bluetooth, I think I have Bluetooth issues with this almost every day. Maybe I'll go like a day without any Bluetooth issues, but that seems to be the exception, not the rule. And it's not like the Bluetooth issues are keeping me from being able to use the keyboard. I can pretty much resolve them every time by turning off both halves of the keyboard and turning them back on and off over and over until eventually the Bluetooth seems to work. But that's something that I've heard from other people in the comments saying that they've had Bluetooth issues. But moving on to some more positive things, or maybe not positive, but things that I've learned. So in my previous videos, I made some claims that turned out to actually not be true. So first I claimed that when flashing the keyboard, it worked better if you did the right side first and then the left side, even though in the documentation, it tells you to do the left side first and then the right side. But I actually have a coworker who has this exact same keyboard and he suggested doing the right side first and then the left side. And I seem to have better success doing it that way. But then the more that I used this keyboard, the more that I realized it didn't really seem to matter which way I did it. I still had issues. But someone else in the comments, they said that you can flash just the left side and that's it. And I tried it out and sure enough, if you only flash the left side of the keyboard, even if you make changes to the right side of the keyboard, just by flashing the left side, those changes affect the right side as well. And so that's been a positive development and made the pain of flashing and making changes to the keyboard just a little less painful. And just going back to the whole like professional aspect of this keyboard, you would think that a product with Pro in its name would have up-to-date documentation that mentions important things like you only have to flash the left side of the keyboard, and you would expect that they would release firmware that fixes the Bluetooth issues that a lot of people have been experiencing. But I'm just complaining at this point, so moving on. The other thing that I was pleasantly surprised to be wrong about, and I just figured this out on my own, I'm really surprised that none of you in the comments corrected me on this. I'm a little disappointed. But one of the claims that I made, and I was actually talking about the Moonlander when I said this, but I said that I couldn't use my symbols layer if I was on my Colmac layer. And Colmac is one of those layers that I've been wanting to learn and figure out. But one of the problems that I had with it is when I was just on my normal QWERTY layer, I have a symbols layer so I can access things like my different brackets and like $sign and caret and percent and all that stuff. But when I went to my Colmac layer, I couldn't access the symbols layer. But it turns out I was just being dumb, and the ZMK and QMK software, the layers are stack-based, and I had my Colmac layer as one of my last layers on my Moonlander, and initially I had the Colmac layer on my Kinesis 360 as the last layer. And simply by changing the Colmac layer to be all the way up here after my default layer so that the symbols layer was after my Colmac layer, making that change made it so that it works. So it turns out that was never a limitation in the first place, and I did test that out with the Moonlander. And I just changed the layout so that Colmac was the second layer on this guy as well, and it works. And just as one last positive thing about this keyboard, it has helped with my typing. So I used to never use my pinkies. Whenever I was typing, I would always use my ring fingers to hit P and Q. And that just felt more comfortable. And you know, my pinkies are just like short, and it was really hard to hit the P and the Q on a normal keyboard. But because of how these keys are placed, it's like actually pretty easy and rather comfortable to use my pinkies to hit these keys up here. And so I'm doing a lot less of this movement. And if there's anything I've learned in this journey, it's that even small adjustments to hand positioning can make a really big difference in the level of comfort that you feel. But that has started to translate over to other keyboards like the Moonlander. It has helped to correct my muscle memory, and I've found that when going back to my Moonlander or on a regular keyboard, that I am using my pinkies more effectively. And also because of the cupping shape of this, it's helped me to keep my fingers more like this, and less like more, I don't know, straight. It's like a terrible demonstration, but having my hands kind of more like this, then I think this is how my hands normally would have been, but just having my fingers curved more like this, it helps with reaching those different keys and is probably a better position for the hands in general. So the Kinesis has been helpful in helping to correct some of that muscle memory so that I'm able to use my pinkies more effectively just in general. So in summary, even though I like the Moonlander way better, I'm going to be sticking with this keyboard simply because since literally day one of using this keyboard, my symptoms have improved dramatically. I literally went from experiencing pain every single day to no pain in one day after switching to this keyboard, which is still crazy to me. And because of that, I'm willing to put up with the issues that I have with this keyboard. And I guess just to be clear, even though I have a lot of issues with this keyboard is still a good keyboard. It's really well built and it's so comfortable. And I can see why so many people love this keyboard and swear by this keyboard. And I've been so critical of this keyboard that I think it should be apparent that I'm not sponsored by Kinesis, but I can say that this keyboard has done nothing short of a miracle for treating my RSI. And I hope this video isn't too long. I've noticed that I really just tend to ramble and talk a lot, and I just don't know when to stop.